Hey, this is Jonathan Gilliam. I'm about to start the show. It's Wednesday, so I want to give you your tasking for the day. And that tasking is, I want you to come up with some kind of mantra for yourself. You know, quite often we get caught up in day-to-day grind, although the days are kind of not like they used to be this time last year or even in February, but we still have a grind. And I think it's important for everybody on a weekly basis to pick out something that you need to repeat in your brain. You know, for the little bit of time that I did yoga, one thing that I learned from doing yoga, other than the fact that it's the most painful thing I've ever done other than going to BUD/S training, SEAL training, is that we would be told by the instructor over and over again, when the pain comes into your mind, cast it away. Just cast it out and move on. And that is something that I tried to incorporate in my life in general. That, I think, is something that we all need to do on a weekly basis, is to look at something in your life, not necessarily that you need to cast away, but something that you need to add. Maybe you need to give yourself a pep talk. Maybe you need to not be so down on yourself and consumed by what's going on. So write yourself a little, I guess they call them memes now, or you can call it a mantra, and repeat that in your mind over and over again throughout the day. And when those thoughts either come in or when you need good thoughts, then you use that to either push them out or bring them in. And let's start the show. This is Jonathan Gilliam back on the Experts Podcast. The truth has arrived. Happy Wednesday. So this is one of those days where there's so little new news to be reported. You can go to Drudge and see almost all the same headlines the next day, or 3 days in a row. That's when you really know it's slow. And I think the biggest story yesterday was I almost said testimony. There was no testimony. It was the Barr hearing, Attorney General Barr hearing. And I know you've probably heard all about this from yesterday on the news and different people. But I got to tell you, I've never seen anything quite like that. It was absolutely insulting, and it is a good example. Remember, the past couple of days, I've been talking about how things build a picture, and truth will always come out eventually. And yesterday I was talking about the different headlines and how you could actually see a picture being painted, even though that's not the picture that they were painting. You know, they're saying all these different things. They're reporting fake news. But at the same time, it still paints a picture because the narrative of what they use kind of just comes together. A perfect example of this is what I reported yesterday about one of the universities in the United States saying that their English department, and if you didn't listen to yesterday's show, go listen to it, but their English department was saying that they think proper English or grammar in general is racist. Now, at the same time that I read that story, I turn the television on, and what do I see? I see more and more commercials where they're not using proper English. And I quite frankly, I find that insulting to people. And if I was a black person or somebody it would be no different than if you took somebody from another country that had a German accent or an Asian accent, and you were constantly start doing videos or commercials of them speaking bad English or broken English, and then the universities around here saying that we're racist. because at the same time saying that we're racist because, we want to speak proper English or have it taught in the schools. Look, I've said this 100 times on this show. I grew up extremely poor, and I grew up in the middle of the Ozarks, and great people there. Not everybody in the South speaks with great English, but wanting to teach them how to speak proper English or write with good grammar doesn't mean that you're a racist. There has to be standards in this world, and that's really what this comes down to. It's not racism. It has to do with standards. But the point I'm trying to make here is that when you see a story like that about the university and their English department saying that grammar is racist, and then you go on television and you see commercials that are blatantly not using proper grammar, there's a correlation there. It's not coincidental. And it's not coincidental, and I'll just say it. It's not coincidental because the people that they're using in the commercials are black and they're not speaking proper English. And that is not racist. That is coordination between people in media and people in the universities, which if you don't think that there's coordination between those leftists, you're crazy. And they say this stuff and then they put it out and they try to push an agenda. And I started to say, I don't know why they would pick that particular thing, but I do know why. Because the more they can heap on all the rest of the people, and it doesn't matter if you have dark skin or light skin, if you criticize somebody, because there's plenty of people who are black that come under criticism from the left, calling them all kinds of names, racial names, because they don't support what they say or they don't buy into it. And when you see this type of coordination, it's evidence that they're moving to suppress or oppress or convince the nation to a point where they can control them. Everything that they accuse everybody else of doing is exactly what they do. Man, I don't know who came up with that tactic, but it's genius. And you see it in narcissists. You could talk anybody out there who's dated a narcissist or married to one or worked for one. That's exactly the way they treat you. And it just, except they're stealing your energy. And when it comes to the left in this country, they're trying to steal our Constitution and throw it away and input a communist, it wouldn't be a constitution, just communist power. You have to see this. Because when I turn on the TV today, and I watch how the Democrats treated Attorney General Barr. And listen, I'm very critical of Attorney General Barr. Very critical. Because I don't think, I think he's a deep stater. I think there's plenty of evidence to show that he's part of the deep state. But just like everything else, like the Ellen show, what's happening now with this cancel culture or with the movement of the left, let's not mistake what's really happening here. The cancel culture and this nonsense of the English department of this school saying that grammar is racist, and the television media people putting out commercials that show people that are black speaking and with bad grammar. All this stuff is trying to push the communist movement forward. And that is not some crazy type of thought. It's not a racial thought. It's not some type of tinfoil hat thing. I've seen it in media. I've seen the coordination. I've seen people who are saying the exact same thing. I'm sitting there watching this, not on my television, in the studio, watching people who literally have talking points from political candidates or political operatives or people in politics or power people. They are sitting there with their talking points that they got from coordinating together. And it is real. So when I saw what was happening today with the way they were, and let me just say this one thing before I get into that. The reason I even was going down that road is because I believe Attorney General Barr is a deep stater. Now, there's different levels of deep staters. There's some people who, like Peter Strzok and Andrew McCabe and Comey and Mueller and Joe Biden, for instance, and these different people, John McCain, all Nancy Pelosi, and all the people that were involved with Obama. They're deep staters. There are a lot of them are leftist as well. They're very hardcore leftist. But they're deep staters, and they are active participants. And then there's these other people that are a part of this mindset in government where, and they could be involved. They could be closet leftists. There's always that possibility. But a lot of these people, and you see this in individuals that are at the top of different agencies, they won't be told to do something. Like, they're not a part of that coordinating factor. But they know that in order to get their bread buttered, or if they're going to go before Congress, in order to get a pass from them, they do certain things. Like, they're scratching their back without being told where to scratch. And it pays off in the long run. A lot of these people that get out of the military and at the level of a general or admiral, or they are deputy directors in an agency, they do certain things behind the scenes, whether it's pass a policy or not enforce a policy that a conservative may want. They will sit on those things, or they will enact leftist types of social experimentation policies, like in the DOD, for instance, or like in the case of what happened with investigations that go on that were, targeting Trump. They may do things without being told that, but they're doing it because when they get out at that level, they're going to get board jobs they're going to get positions on a board, and they'll make $100,000, $150,000 a year, sometimes more, sometimes $1 million or more, to sit on these boards. And they may sit on 10 of these boards doing literally nothing. They show up every now and then and they vote on something. That's basically it. But they're powerful people, so they want them on those boards because it brings power to their company. See, there's this big game that goes on at that level. That's why I've always said, when I got into government, one of the things I noticed very quickly is that the people that are at the top are in a different pay bracket. And the SESers, the senior executive service members in government, those are the people that run all these agencies. A lot of the political appointees, these people are SESers. They live and work in an environment where, when the Civil Service Act happened, they actually created another division called the SES, because if you were to get to a GS-15 level, your pay is going to be capped at what a junior congressman makes. I believe that's what it is, right? You can't make more than they do. I don't know why that is, but just being a regular agent or employee of one of these agencies, you can only rise to a GS-15, which is at that level. But somebody along the way said, we need to create a system so that these people can be at the very top, can be paid the equivalent amount that they would be paid in the corporate world. In other words, so we can make them wealthy. And I don't know how that equates, how wealth equates to great leadership at the top of an agency. I mean, it obviously doesn't work because they're all corrupt. And see, that's the whole thing. In order to get that position, you have to be pulled up. You don't climb to an SES position. You are pulled up. And the same thing in the military. You don't climb to the rank of admiral and above. You don't get above 06, which in the Navy is captain, and in the Army is colonel. You see, you don't climb past that. You get pulled past that. And one of the things that gives people incentive to stay on board or to maneuver so that they can get pulled up. Because remember, operators, people who are really into the job, that's what we call operators. The ground pounders, they're people who really are good at their job. They're an operator. And these operators, they're going to do whatever needs to be done so they get the job done effectively, so they have mission success. They're hard chargers. And people at the top, they don't like that. They don't like people like they like them to be down there. Hard chargers stay down there. And so the people who actually strive to ascend to those levels of in the military, 07 and above, and in the agencies, directors or deputy directors, I guess you could say special agents in charge. That's about the level. ASACs, a lot of people can get to assistant special agent in charge. But to get higher than that, you kind of have to be pulled up. But the people that really do, I would say more often than not, strive to get to those upper levels are not people who are hell-bent on being an operator. They're more inclined. They want to follow the money trail. They want to follow the power trail. That's the ladder that they're climbing. So in order to get to that level, they're already being trained how to scratch backs, how to shake hands, how to pre-think what that boss wants so that you can, get approval and move up. And it's the same thing with the bosses. They do that for the big politicians, and maybe they'll go to dinners or they'll strive to get positioned or stationed in a certain place so they can get close to people in the corporate world. Because many of them already have jobs before they leave. And it's not like, you're going to, like, for a lower level person, they're going to go to another agency and work at another agency. These people go to, Fortune 500 companies and sit on boards, or they go, to NASDAQ and run their security. They do these types of things. They've scratched backs along the way so that they can rise to that level. So when they made these SESer positions, they do think they made, part of their job, like, for instance, bonuses. And anybody who's worked in the federal government knows that you don't get a bonus. You're in federal government. You work for a living, right? You don't get into service for the government to get rich. And so these bonuses that some of these SESers will get would be $25,000, $50,000 in a year. One of the guys from, I'm not going to say which office it was, but one of the offices in the Bureau, he got $25,000 and went around bragging about it because he made them reuse their computers instead of updating the computers. And their computers were antiquated. But he, got $25,000 bonus. He was bragging about how he's going to build a new terrace or balcony at his house with that money. That's corruption is what that is. And I can't understand why we went to that level. We should have never, I always say this, I don't understand. I understand because corruption breeds corruption, and that's why that existed. And also the higher ups want to give people something to strive for other than being an operator or a servant. So they make these categories, and these people that are less than ethical strive to get to those positions because it's just, it's, if you've never been in the government, it's hard to explain the ethical prowess. I think that's a good word. The ethical heart of a warrior or an operator versus the ethical heart of somebody who just wants to get to the top and make money and have power. Those are two different hearts altogether. And the person that is the real operator, they are somebody who is ingrained in the agency. The other people are ingrained in the system. And so when I see Barr, it's a long explanation to get to this point, but when I see Barr, I see somebody ingrained in the system. That is the other part of the deep state, the one that nobody really talks about. So you have the corrupt deep state, and everybody knows about that, and we've seen what they do, and they flex their muscles. And I'm going to play you some sound bites here in a minute from, the corrupt Democrats, and it really should just be the Democrat Judiciary Committee because there are very few Republicans on there, and it was a sick display today. But everybody's familiar with that type of senior executive service, that type of politician that is a deep stater, and they're nasty and mean, and they will kill people's careers and probably in many cases kill people. But there's this other part of the deep state, and I believe Barr, Durham, and a lot of these other people that you would think, are part of, that are like a Trey Gowdy. Everybody loved Trey Gowdy because he gets up there and says all these big things, and then nothing ever comes of it. That's the way I look at Bill Barr. And so what he suffered today is the wrath of the other deep state, which is those nasty, mean, weird people that are true leftists. Whether or not Barr is a leftist, it's hard to tell. But I will truly say that he does not do what he could do to stop the left. Like, for instance, going up there today, and as I talked about yesterday, he never really, when he described Antifa, he was not and listen, I want to play sound bites for you guys, but for me to go through, because I watched it on television, and to go back through the video today, if you didn't watch it, I'm going to play a little bit of it, and what I'm going to play for you is an example of what went on for several hours, and I don't really care to go through it again because it was like asshole-itis. It was like a competition to see who could be the biggest jerk. And it left you with a bad feeling after watching it. It's very disgraceful to Barr and to the United States. So Barr has not, as far as I'm concerned, he's only done a little bit better of a job than Sessions, who was a complete failure. Barr's done some things, but no great thing has happened. And when you look at Trey Gowdy, as I was saying, and Barr and these different people, what you see are people that have an appearance of the warrior, but they're not the warrior. Now, I've never met Barr. What I saw of him today, I actually liked what I saw with him today. Incredible reserve. He was very bothered by the way he was being treated, but he really came off as somebody who was controlled and intelligent, and the Democrats came off as people looking exactly like the people who were protesting in Portland, exactly like the people who were tearing up all these different cities, exactly like when Kavanaugh was having his hearing and they, had talked about how the lady was supposedly almost sexually assaulted. Not sexually assaulted, almost sexually assaulted. And the whole nonsense and nastiness of all that in the Russian investigation, that's the way those people are. And they came off looking very stupid and nasty. So I'm in a little bit of a quandary there, but I can tell you, if we just look at the raw data of what Barr has actually achieved, he's carried out the president's policies, but we need an attorney general with teeth. We need people to go after somebody to go after the left like Giuliani went after the mob in New York City. That's what we need. That's not what we have. And I don't care what you think the plan is. I got accosted by some of these Q people again, and I want to say this, okay? The Q people think because you disagree with them that you are the enemy. And see, that's where I think everything they believe in is pretty much wrong, in at least the way that they believe in it. But what they don't get is that because you disagree with them or you stand up to them, it doesn't mean that you're a part of this whole system that I just spent 20 minutes describing. That is not the case. But see, you can't talk to people who are brainwashed. You can't talk to people who think, and that's where I'm going with this show today, you can't talk to people and have a rational discussion with them if they get off on having information. And these people, a great vast majority of these people in the Q movement are very similar in mindset to the people that are going around all these cities. These young people have been indoctrinated in schools saying that they love communism or socialism or whatever, because they think they know more than everybody else. And if you disagree with them, they think they just automatically become defensive and you're stupid, you're wrong, you're the enemy. What they don't realize is that there's a lot of people like myself who've worked in different agencies, collecting information the right way and vetting it to make sure that it was true, to make sure that it was factual. I mean, we were in the FBI and in the SEAL teams. We were held by to a standard by law or by policy. But people that do their own research or people that have been indoctrinated, they don't go by the rule of law. They go by, this is what the person that teaches me tells me, or this is what I read online. And as I tweeted out earlier, if a fool desires information, but when they do that, when that is their key motivation is to have information, what that does is it creates a narcissistic confidence in their own opinions. And if you find yourself, it doesn't have to be Q people or communists or whatever. If you find yourself arguing with somebody about something and you really don't know what you're talking about, you should stop, slap yourself, and then go educate yourself on, if that's what you want to argue about, educate yourself beyond your own opinion and beyond what others are telling you. And the worst thing about this is that in the word that they believe, anon means anonymous, right? Never take something that is anonymous for fact unless you can vet it, because people can tell you whatever they want. The same people that will believe that will put all over social media how big of liars the news is in the media and how they don't, how they're telling fake information. Well, listen, you're no better than them. And I know these people would tell me, well, you don't know, you're not a part of it. I don't want to be a part of it. I have my own ability to collect information based on my sources who still work in government, and by having the knowledge of having worked in government and been behind the scenes in media and seen the way politics has inflamed everything in this country. I've been there. I've seen it. I know for a fact how statistics are skewed by the FBI so they can go in front of Congress and make things sound like they're doing things that they're really not. And most of these people that follow Q, or these young people or older people who follow communism, have no clue about the actual facts of the things that they believe in. Anybody who believes in communism is an idiot. All you got to do is look at two things. Look at the history of mankind and the behavior of mankind, and you know that there will never be a classless society without authority. And two, look at history and look at where people have claimed to be communists. It's a miserable existence. It gets to that point, and it will never get to that point. Now, that's a longer show, and I've talked about that for hours. But you have to realize, if you are doing this, if you're listening to this show because I pissed you off because you came at me, and that's the other thing, you can't go against Q people on social media because you'll be branded. Well, listen, whatever. I don't care. Brand me. That is not my core group of people. Okay, they call themselves patriots, but yet they go around crushing and trying to injure people on social media who are patriots, because they don't agree with the way that they collect information. So I don't really care. But let me give you a little piece of advice if you're listening and you're trying to find something that you can, use as a little dagger. You need to realize that your addiction to information that is not vetted does not make you a patriot. Action makes you a patriot. And being an educated person in the facts is a greater sword than any conspiracy theory or I've got the lowdown on something. You know how many people have lost their life savings because they got the lowdown on a stock from somebody who was not a stockbroker, who said, yeah, my cousin works at this place. You got to invest it. People go pour all their money into it, and then it doesn't do anything because their cousin loads boxes onto UPS trucks in the warehouse and doesn't even know what happens at the executive level in that business. That's exactly what's happening with the Q people. Good intentions, information that is not vetted. And there's crazy people that are a part of all of this stuff. And listen, some of the information may be factual. There may be somebody in government who's actually putting stuff up there, but you don't know one from the next. But yet the funny thing is, I can sit back here, monitor the news, look at the nonsense that's being spewed by all these people in Congress or in Hollywood or all these people, and I can sit here and put things together and understand facts that those people who have this mysterious source that's anonymous, their information will never come close to raw experience and having been there and know that. Now, I just want to say one other thing, okay, about all the people out there that think that they're doing good. And I know your hearts are in the right place. First of all, don't come at me on social media thinking that I'm going to back down, because I'm not going to. I've never backed down from anything. I'm not going to back down from anyone. I've paid my price to this country. Most of you have not. And I've paid it with blood and destroyed my body in the process of serving for your freedom. Okay. So don't come at me with your shit on social media thinking I'm going to back down, because I'm not. And don't think because you have some kind of inside track that you know more than me, because you probably don't. But this thing that is going on now with this Q movement that has to do with the pedophilia and the child sex trafficking, there's a tremendous amount of people whose hearts are in the right place. I worked human trafficking cases when I was in the Bureau. The first time I went through a door in an arrest was at a brothel where over 40 young women were being prostituted. Now, granted, most of them were trafficked, not smuggled, or they were smuggled, not trafficked. Okay. The difference is most of them knew they were coming here, and they knew why they were coming here. However, there were some that were not. The interesting thing is, when you arrest all of them and one of them finds out that, you know, if I say I'm trafficked, everything changes. That's what they say. Now, when you get them and you charge them and they're getting ready to be deported, they may have a different story a lot of the times. However, I have dealt with it. I have seen it. I'm not going to go into detail, but when I was in the SEAL teams, I helped rescue a kid. I have seen the potential that these weirdos, these pedophiles, these destroyers of life, I have seen the extent of what they can do. Most of you have not. Now, I applaud your passion, and I applaud what you're doing. And by any means, if I can assist, I will always assist in that. But what I don't like is when you all put videos of a 9-year-old girl from another country who is getting questioned by an investigator in a private room with another detective, and they're going through the entire process of how she was sexually assaulted and apparently drank blood and ate parts of babies. Now, I know that sounds crazy, although the Q people are not going to think that sounds crazy. And people who understand what goes on in some of these things are not going to think that's crazy. Now, unless this video was fake, which I don't think it was, and even if it was fake, I don't agree, and I do believe it's illegal and highly unethical to be posting that video. I don't care how old it is. I don't care if she's not from America. It's a 9-year-old girl, and they're posting that video all over Facebook. I haven't seen it on Twitter yet, but it was on Facebook under a group called I think it was get rid of Ralph Northam. Let me look it up real quick because I took screenshots of this because I was so disgusted. Oh, yeah. Stop Governor Ralph Northam. That's the name of the group. 21,000 members. I actually, somebody, you know how people will send you requests to, join this group. I joined the group because I think Ralph Northam is one of the people who'd get off on this probably. So I'm in this group and all of a sudden I see this video of this young girl and they're talking to her. And as I start to watch this, I'm astounded because I'm thinking somebody posted a video of them and their kid on here, and because up top they were like, you have to hear this, you have to see this. So I'm like, okay, what do they got? What is this? Have something to do with Ralph Northam? No. This is a young 9-year-old girl who evidently was sexually assaulted over and over at her school, wherever she was from. I stopped it at that point and tried to report it to Facebook, but Facebook doesn't have, for some strange reason, YouTube does. YouTube's on top of it. You go and you report something, the first thing they're going to ask you, does it have anything to do with children? And nothing on Facebook like that. It's all about, were you offended by this? So it was difficult enough to find out where to report this. But and I put on there, you should take this down immediately. It's unethical and highly and most likely illegal. So then some woman comes at me and says some just nasty stuff, telling me that it has to be shown. This needs to be shown. People need to know the truth. I'm like, yeah, you make your own video describing, what goes on in the world and post that. Or write something and put it up there. But you don't need to show videos of young children who've been sexually assaulted, describing it to an investigator in private. Then I reported it to their admin. And to my surprise, one of the admin guys who runs it, his name is Mark Lothan. I don't know where he's from, but he is one of the administrators on this group. He comes on and starts berating me and telling me that I must be, one of the deep staters. I must be this. And they have these key words that they use, accusing me instead of taking the video down and saying the same thing, that the world needs to see this. And so I replied, you don't exploit children in order to point out how children are being exploited. Do you understand how stupid that sounds? And he comes back again using these words, accusing me, saying something about, oh, well, that sounds like something a pedophile would say. I mean, seriously? The more I looked at who this guy is, he's a Q follower. And then the same thing. I go over to Twitter today, and somebody, because I put on there, and this is Q's new thing. This is these QAnon followers. This is their new thing. There will not be a civil war. Q said there would not be a civil war. Listen, there's more going on in this world than 1 or 50 people who think that they know what's going on. There's a whole set of circumstances going on around this world that has more to do with Satan than it does individual leaders in and around the world. And I'm a big Trump supporter, but Trump, the president of the United States, my president and yours, he is not going to solve every problem that exists in the world. And he is certainly he himself is not going to stop the movement of this leftist, deep state, communist movement. He can't stop it on his own. The people have to be involved in that. And that doesn't come from an anonymous source. It comes from a group of men who created a nation 244 years ago. And they set into the standard of this country service. And if you want to save the country, that's where it comes from. But as I went on here, and somebody didn't like that. They didn't like the fact that I had said that there is going to be a civil war. And I've been speaking on this anywhere I can, telling people that we are in a civil war. If we don't start standing up to this nonsense that's going on in all these cities and stop it ourselves, and I'm not talking about going out there and getting in an armed conflict. I'm talking about Those people, Antifa, they're not more than, they're hundreds, okay? They're not thousands of people. If you showed up with 10,000 people, there's 10,000 people that live on the West Coast. If you all got off your couches and you went up there, you could shove those people out of there. You wouldn't need federal agents up there. And trust me, the cops that are going to tell you you all have to leave, if there's 10,000 of you, they're not going to tell you anything. So anyway, that's apparently not happening. And things are escalating. And then when you see what happened today with the Barr, Attorney General Barr's hearing, when I tell you all this other stuff that's happening and you can see it in the media, there's clear signs that we are moving towards a civil war, or not just a civil war, a complete takeover, because people won't get up off their butts and do anything together. So there's a potential, if the president loses in November, especially if we lose, if they keep the House and we lose the Senate, we are done. This country is done. So these idiots come on to, social media, on Twitter, actually. And lo and behold, they spew the same crap as that guy from Facebook. Because, and I'm going to say this one more time and that's it. And this is directly to the Q people. Your heart may be in the right place, but you don't know everything. You may think that this is the plan or that's the plan. If you do, great. We'll see if the plan works out. But the reality is the people, many of the people, because of your loud mouths, and I've had to face these people with their mouth, not just with the keyboard muscles, because of your mouths, because of your psychotic use of social media, you are crushing people who would actually not just sit behind a keyboard, but actually go out there and get on the ground and do things to stop the left. You are the ones that are effing up the plan, the real plan that was put in place 244 years ago. So I don't want to deal with it anymore. I'm not going to support you. I don't want to mess with it. You go your way and I'll go my way. But if you try to come up against me, trust me, it is not going to end well. It's just wrong. It's wrong the way this thing is going, and it's got opposition, information flow, opposition, operatives inside of this Q movement that is pushing people to believe nonsense and act like dickheads. And if you want to make a difference, stop that. If you think you're a patriot, then you need to start looking at other people that may be patriots. They just don't think the way you think we should go about things. And they don't believe in an anonymous plan. That doesn't mean that they're not patriots. But you all vilify people. You vilify people that actually have a stage and could help you out. So let's take a break. And then I'm going to come back and play some of these excerpts from the Barr hearing. And I'm going to explain to you a little bit more about why I didn't play more sound bites for this. But I want to show you just exactly what happened there and the important parts of it that really can sum it up very quickly. We'll be right back. Now, I know you guys hear me talk about my books all the time on this show, but I have to tell you, if you have not ordered Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, right now is the time when you should be doing that. Honestly, look around. Is anything getting safer in this country? I don't think so. And you need to start taking responsibility for your safety. You may not have law enforcement showing up at your place. So now is the time when you need to assess your threats. Now, the way you do that, the way you assess your threats, is you read Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival, and you apply what I teach you in that book. The first half of the book is set up to show you how attackers look at you, why they would attack, who would attack, when it would happen, where it would happen, and how it would be carried out. You divide your life into sectors, and basically, it's not rocket science. You look at yourself from their point of view. I just show you how they do it. The second half of the book shows you how to take what you've learned and then build better defenses, awareness, plans of action, and strategies to mitigate these threats of attack. Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. There's 2 workbooks that go with it that you can order after that and actually apply it. Workbook number 1 is the Threat Assessment Workbook, and workbook number 2 is the Defense Assessment Workbook. So they go right along with the book. The first one is like the first half of Sheep No More. The second one is like the second half. And then, because I just didn't think that was enough for you to secure your home, I came up with a children's book with Danielle Kreiner, who did the illustration of it. We put safety, communication, and awareness lessons all in the pictures. It's called The Adventures of Team Little Bigs, a parent's book for children. And why is it a parent's book for children? Because you go to teamlittlebigs.com and get the lesson plans, hand the book of pictures to your child, and then you teach them 2 to 8 on awareness, communication, and safety. Sheep No More, The Art of Awareness and Attack Survival. It's 2 workbooks, and The Adventures of Team Little Bigs, a parent's book for children. This is how you secure your homeland. All right, so now we'll get past all this other nonsense. One thing that pisses me off more than anything is infighting. I can't say you don't see that on the left. They don't fight within each other. I mean, there's squabbles. I mean, these idiots that run Antifa, and I'm sure Black Lives Matter, they squabble quite a bit. And there's probably squabbles between people who are the useful idiots who think they're out there for one thing, and the people who are out there trying to basically overthrow the country. I'm sure they squabble a little bit, but overall, they just go along. They're the collective mindset. You should never be comfortable with being a part of a collective mindset unless you are a part of a team that is trained for a mission and you are getting ready to carry that mission out. Then that mindset of this is the way our tactics are, they're proven, this is the way they work, that's a different story. Otherwise, in this country, a collection of free people, that's what you should be. Now, let me pull up this these sound bites, and I'm only playing a few because I'm just playing it just to show you how over the top this stuff was. And this isn't even the worst of it. I just pulled up a video that has a few minutes of some of the highlights. Listen to this rudeness.
An incredible job. You pushed states to open too soon. You threatened states with lawsuits.
I didn't ask states to open. I didn't ask states to open.
You threatened with lawsuits for those states that wanted to have stay-at-home orders, Mr.
For things
Barr.
like church.
We have the facts. I'm going by the facts.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
And now the country, the United States of America, has more than 4.3 million COVID cases alone. You, Mr. Barr, and President Trump, working together, are letting my constituents down.
This doesn't make any sense whatsoever. This is a republic. I mean, you can clearly see, not just in the COVID, but in these riots, in the violence that's going on in this country, you can clearly see that governors and mayors have just Democrat governors and mayors just ruined this country. Barr had nothing to do with that. Trump had nothing to do with that. There was some squabble. I keep using the word squabbles. There were some things that were going on which I don't agree with myself, where they pinpointed church. See, this is another thing that Barr does that I don't agree with. They go along and they don't try to open up things based on the Constitution. They try to keep them closed based on what doctors are saying. And as we've seen, nobody knows what they're talking about when it comes to this virus. You as law enforcement, you have to look at the facts And there are no facts. It's all speculation. So this idiot, her name is Miss Powell. I don't know where she's from because the thing I'm looking at doesn't have where they're from. This is the type of questioning that went on all day. Now listen to how this ends.
It's something that you are going to have to live with. What am I supposed to say to my constituents when they ask me if the government has done everything in its power to protect their loved ones from dying? You tell me, Mr. Barr, what am I supposed to tell?
Well, first of all, you're idiot. You're part of the government. Why don't you tell your constituents? You're just as much of a responsible for this as the president or Bill Barr. You're just as much responsible for the spread of COVID. In other words, they're not responsible for it. By and large, this is what these politicians, and a little side note here that's just driving me crazy. The people, you and I, we are responsible for this virus spread, right? The way it came over was through people. It wasn't through government. The way it came, well, we don't know that for sure, right? But it came over here. It spread because people don't want to wash their hands. They touch their faces. Because by and large, the biggest thing was because particular governors put COVID positive patients in elderly clinics with elderly people who are the most affected by this virus. Over almost half of the people that have died from the virus were killed because of their bad decisions. And I'm starting to think it was on purpose. We look at Cuomo, that guy, everything that he is doing is if he is trying to destroy New York. It's as if he's trying. Now it's up to like 35 or 36 different states that you cannot come to New York unless you quarantine for 14 days. And if you live here and you leave and come back, you had to quarantine for 14 days. Nonsense. None of that proves anything. We've shown the proof is there. Quarantining does nothing unless you have signs and symptoms of this virus. It is going to spread. There are people that have gotten it that were quarantined for 30 days and they still got it. The virus is everywhere. Boxes that you get from Amazon, mail that you get from the mailman, groceries you get from the store. That virus could be all over that. It's gotten to a point where you can't control this. I mean, there's certain things you could do, to try to keep large groups from spreading it. And you could protect the elderly from getting it. But it's going to spread. But one thing I will say is that the people that they should be questioning here are those governors, not Bill Barr. Bill Barr didn't go around spreading this stuff. He's not the one that put old COVID positive patients in elderly clinics. Freaking idiots.
I would tell them that managing this kind of thing requires a lot of difficult choices and weighing different consequences.
I'm not going to lie. I am not going to lie to my constituents. I am going to tell them that President Donald Trump and the Attorney General working together are not following health guidelines. They're letting Americans die needlessly because of political.
Now, do you see? She's accusing them of this is what I was talking about earlier. She is accusing Barr and the president of the exact thing that the governors, these Democrat governors, were doing. The exact thing that they did. This is the game that they play. I don't know how he sat there. I would have got up and left. Thank goodness Jim Jordan and one or two other people were there because it was all Democrats.
Reasons. That is what I will tell them, Mr. Barr. Thank you. And one last question, if I can.
In our system.
Under oath, do you commit to not releasing any report by Mr. Durham before the November election?
No.
You don't commit to that?
No.
So you won't go by Department of Justice policy that you won't interfere in any political investigations before the November election?
We're not going to interfere. In fact, I've made it clear I'm not going to tolerate it.
But under oath, you're saying that you do not commit to not releasing a report by Durham?
I'm not going to. Any report will be, in my judgment, not one that is covered by the policy and it would disrupt the election. I've already made it clear that neither
you would go against your own Department of Justice policy, Mr. Barr.
Why don't you tell me what that policy is?
Oh, I have it right here.
Well, actually,
Do you want me to repeat it for you?
So you see where this is going. It's just nonsense. But one thing I will say about that is if I was him, I would be releasing everything right now. Listen, election be damned. We need to know the reality of what's going on. There are people that would vote for Joe Biden and the Democrat Party. And there's actually idiots out there in this country, in this nation, that will purposely vote Democrat in order to keep what they call a balance of power. I mean, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard of in my life. If you don't see the danger of the Democrat Party, listen, the Republican Party, it's proven, just like quarantine doesn't work, it is proven that the Republican Party, when it owns all three branches of government, will do nothing. They proved it before. They didn't do anything. We had all three branches of government. We had the president, we had the Congress, we had the Senate, and they didn't do a thing. So I'm less worried about that because I'm a conservative. I don't want to change things quickly, but I'm less worried about that than I am the communist takeover. Let me skip to, they come on right here because she did accuse him basically of murder.
no, I know what the policy is.
The time of the gentlelady.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you. I yield back. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Gentlelady.
Mr. Chairman, point of order.
Gentlelady.
Point of order,
gentlelady
Mr.
yields
Chairman.
back. What purpose does the gentleman seek?
Is it permissible for a member of this committee to accuse the sitting Attorney General of the United States of murder? Because that's what we just heard. Those words need to be struck from this record. This is outrageous.
The members control the time.
Mr. Chairman.
To say whatever they want? What about rules of decorum?
Forget about this is Mr. Johnson from Louisiana. Mr. Johnson, forget about decorum. That ain't happening. We saw it. It started when the Democrats took over the House, and it's gotten progressively worse to the point where if you watched this entire thing, which I did today, what you're seeing right here is what the whole thing was, the whole 2 hours. It was just them berating Barr, not giving him a chance to answer, and there was only two Republicans in the room that I could see that, and when they would bring up anything, they would just walk right over him and keep on going. Jim Jordan will say something here.
Escobar.
Mr. Chairman, I actually have a clarification. Mr. Chairman.
Escobar.
I just.
Escobar is recognized.
Thank you,
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman, was the
Escobar.
video played by the previous member, was that a video of things that happened in the United States or in Venezuela?
Which is very interesting because she played a video, and I think it was of stuff in Venezuela that had nothing to do with America. Absolutely ridiculous. There's one part here, I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it, where Miss Escobar was questioning, I don't know where she's from either, and she was questioning Bill Barr, had something to do with cancer research or something, and Attorney General Barr says that it means a lot to him because he has two children that had cancer, I think is what he said. Let me see if this is it right here. And she totally ignored him and just kept on berating him.
This change in the census means that those children, American, please, Mr. Barr, are you comfortable with the decision that would punish American children and immigrant communities in this way?
I don't make the policy. I provide legal advice on legal issues. So as
Okay.
both to this issue and the issue of the
Thank you, Mr.
ACA,
Barr.
the question presented to the department is the law.
Reclaiming my time, sir. Mr. Barr, a simple yes or no. Does the Constitution say that only citizens should be counted in the census?
No.
Correct. It does not. In fact, the framers of the 14th Amendment explicitly confronted this question, and it provides that persons in each state be counted. I'll move on.
Well, they wouldn't have.
Among
They wouldn't
many
have
other-
confronted
sir,
it
there's
because there were no
question.
illegal
Yet,
aliens
among
at the
many
time.
other things.
See, this is where he really did shine. There were no illegal aliens at the time, is what he is saying. And so we have to look at that, especially because of the fact we have 20 million illegal aliens here, and they predominantly vote, if they were to vote, would vote Democrat. There's no doubt about it. And it would greatly sway the election by people who were not citizens of this country. I'm not going to find that one soundbite that I was telling you about. If you want to listen to the whole thing and go through, that's fine. But this is just, it's, let me see if this is the other part here.
Sadly, that's where we are today.
My loyalty is the
Mr. Chairman, I
Constitution.
yield back.
That's why I came into government.
Gentlelady yields
The
back.
lady just accused him of not adhering to his oath of office. Let him talk. Holy, she just accused the Attorney General of the United States not adhering to his oath. Let the gentleman speak.
Even worse.
Gentleman will suspend.
I mean, I can't even, I'm not going to play any more of it. You guys, if you want to hear it, just go on YouTube, but you can watch the whole thing. And it's just disgusting to me to even to listen to it again. It disgusted me that bad, because here we are, in this situation with this virus, which it's really, I've explained before, I had the virus. I know people have died from the virus. The virus is definitely real, and it especially hits elderly people. Now they're saying, of course, these reports, who knows what's true and what's not, but they're saying that it causes heart disease to 70% of the people who've had it. It's injured their hearts. I don't know how they're coming up with that number, because I was tested. I was positive. I was sick. I went back and got tested again. I didn't have it. I got tested for antibodies. I had antibodies. Nowhere in there was there a test on my heart. Nowhere. So I don't know where they're coming up with these different statistics and evidence that we're being injured and so on and so forth. But the virus is real. You can get it. It does kill mostly elderly. But like I was saying a minute ago, government is responsible for almost half of those people dying or getting it, because they force the infection into these elderly homes. But like I was about to say, here we are, in this state of affairs with a virus that's real, with a communist movement that has gained so much steam that they are just literally going in and using whatever excuse. It could be George Floyd, his murder. It could be, it could be one thing, and then they get into the city, and then they turn around and say, well, now we're rioting because the president sent in his secret thugs, right? Whatever they want to call them. They call them something different all the time. Secret police. When they got police on it, and it has a patch on their shoulder saying where they're from, but to them they're secret police, because it doesn't say, Department of or Portland Police Department. Right. To them, they don't know exactly who it is, so they assume that it's secret police or henchmen that they sent in. Right. So then they'll start writing about that. But this thing has gone crazy, where they just do whatever. They burn down whole city blocks. People are getting murdered, and nobody's doing anything about it. We have all these things occurring right now. We have all these things occurring, and yet we look at the government. We look at these politicians. We look at the state of affairs, and nobody's doing a thing about it on either side. I don't really, right now is not the time to bring the Attorney General in front of Congress. What they should have said was, we want to know the answers to these questions. What are you doing about communism? What are you looking at these governors that killed these people to make sure that they don't do that again? Are we ensuring that churches have their constitutional rights to worship? Are governments in these states overstepping their authority? These are things that is MS-13 on the rise? Are they taking advantage of this? I didn't hear any of that today. I didn't hear any of it. So for them to go to this point and do this is just another sign of where we're going, and it's another sign of how important it is for you to look at information and find facts. In this world right now, it's probably the most important thing that you can do, because your mind and potentially your fighting spirit are going to be necessary. I don't care what anybody says or whatever group you belong to says. Nobody can determine right now whether there will be a civil war or not. But I can tell you this, the potential is there. And potential scares me much more and alarms me much more than probability. And it definitely puts me on notice way more than anonymous information. I'm Jonathan Gilliam. This is The Experts. The truth has arrived. Peace, and we're out here.